Chrysalix continues to move at a full sprint through the woods. His legs carried him swiftly through the night, but if the news he heard was true, there was no time to waste. He stops for a moment and takes a drink from his water skin. Then he begins his sprint again. Hours into the night he had been running, long enough so where the moonlight clearly illuminated his path, as it hung suspended in the star-filled sheet of the night sky. As the edge of the trees cascaded towards the peripherals of his vision, Chrysalix slid into the open grass clearing as the dew of the early morning quickened his approach, welcoming him to the eastern city gates of Neverwinter. Wasting no time, he slipped undetected by the guard half asleep at his post, who was resting with his helmet pulled halfway down over his face, and into the darkness behind the first building, Chrysalix disappeared. He continued to run, and as the buildings became more sparse, he slipped into the opening, surrounded by grass, and there he saw it in the distance, the small, one-story home that belonged to Francis.
Previously on D&D Kinda.
A blinding flash of light struck the ground as Francis staggered backwards, and in the wake of the lightning, there was a portal that hovered next to Francis. In an instant, the portal opened. A large man in a purple robe leaned through and wrapped his arm around Francis's neck. He smirked, looking towards Benedict and Hamilton, and said,
"My, how you both have grown. You make your father proud."
And with that, he fell back into the portal, and he and Francis were gone. When you entered the astral plane, your bodies were scrambled. You do not have the magics bound to your bodies to keep your souls in place to one thing. Immediately inside of the door, there are 4 stone pillars. You guys notice that the lights coming off these 4 pillars, they spring to action. One of them turns into a dragon, one of them turns into a dwarf, one turns into a human figure, and one of them turns into a gnome, and they shoot off, then disappear into the walls.
I walk up to the cage, and I put my hands on the cage.
So whenever you put your hands on the cage, you're looking at this soul. You get thrown backwards across the floor. And in your mind, you are seeing a skull, and it is speaking to you.
Remember your mother's sacrifice. Prove she did not die for nothing.
My whole life's purpose is to kill my father.
Hamilton, give up your most prized possession if you wish to see your soul again.
Yeah, I don't think I'm giving away my book. And if that means that I lose my soul, then whatever. There's no guarantee that I'll be able to negotiate another pact with Cthulhu. My book is the source of my power.
The room above you that's in this huge massive archway slowly comes into vision. You see this throne, and you see Lokar sitting on the throne. Benedict, Hamilton, Topher, and Bartholonude stood gazing into the room before them, as Lokar sat throned at the top of this great hall. Encompassing the majority of the rear wall beyond the throne was a prodigious circular window with intricate metal running through, as if it were a glass tapestry. The window allowed purple moonlight to flow through the room, illuminating it, causing fractals and sparks with the reflection off the shimmering metals and metallic paints and linens that lined the floors and the walls. As the party stood peering into the room, next to Lokar, suspended on a large metal slab, chained by her hands and feet, was Francis. She was unconscious, with shackles around her hands and feet, and each limb pulled in a direction towards the top and bottom corners of the slab, suspending her in the center, high off the ground.
I don't know if we're ready to do this yet.
our main focus should be getting back in our bodies.
I think maybe we should ask Lokar why we are here.
As much as I would like to know that.
I can't imagine that he didn't know we were coming and didn't likely even have a hand in us coming here.
Oh, absolutely. Do you think that we should all go? Or do you think that those in your body and your brother's body should stay behind? While you ask him.
I have no problem with asking him, if that's what you're saying.
Oh no, I just didn't know if he wanted to kill you both. And if we should stay behind so we're not seen. So he doesn't have direct eyes on us.
Well, as far as we know, that was his goal in the first place.
I don't think that Lokar would be fooled by us showing up in different bodies.
Yeah, you could go. You look like what I should look like, so he won't know that you're you. Let's just all go. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go.
So you guys just keep walking and walk in?
Approach the throne.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm pissed at the sight of him. Like, I really just want to slit his throat, but I'm withholding that for now.
So you guys all walk in. I'm assuming you guys are like in a, not like a horizontal line, essentially, walking in like shoulder to shoulder. Well, in some cases. Side to side, walking into this throne room in a straight line as you guys are, it's massive. There is just a ton of space in here. And you guys pass the pillars, walking across. And as you guys approach the throne, Lokar takes notice of you all. And he stands and he gets to the bottom of the stairs and he outstretches his hands and he says,
Ah, my sons, how I've missed you.
and he walks up to you all and he immediately approaches Bartholonude's body and Hamilton's body and he embraces both of you. What do you guys do?
I'm pushing off.
You shove him back?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm probably not going to shove him back. I'm going to shove myself backwards, but...
Okay, so you kind of like shove back, and do you say anything to him, or are you just kind of like really wigged out?
I'm like super confused as to what's happening, because everything that we've been told our whole lives, at least me, is that he killed our mothers to achieve higher power. And there's nothing telling me that he doesn't want that now.
Okay.
And now he's just going to come up and hug us, like...
So, what are you thinking right now, Hamilton?
So I'm just going to address him directly.
Okay.
Lokar, I always dreamt of the day that we would meet. I assumed that it would be in my world, and that you would have reappeared there. But it just so happens to not have worked out the way that I imagined. Now, I'm not foolish. I have a feeling that the reason that we are here is because you wanted us here, and you brought us here. So if you don't mind, why exactly have you brought us here?
It would be ignorant for me to say that I did not want to bring you all here. However, let's just say you're slightly ahead of schedule. I did not bring you here, but I am not at all upset with the timing. And for as meeting in your world versus meeting in mine, I don't entirely understand it, or as I should say, I'm beginning to, and it seems as if you both are still left in the dust. I was sent to this plane of existence. First I viewed it as a curse. But the powers here, the magics, the solitude, the rush of power to be gained when there's none other than I to obtain it. This has been more of a blessing than it has a curse. But then something else occurred to me. my connection to the physical plane of existence wasn't severed as I had thought it would be. I had seen the spells that your mothers had concocted. I had seen the signs, and I had seen your birth both of you were birthed for my benefit. I was going to kill you both. But I have found more efficient ways to increase my power. So come. I invite you to dine with me. Bring your friends. And don't worry about trying any funny business. I assure you that nothing you could do would have any harm here.
Frances will dine with us. Let her down.
Frances will stay right where she is, and I assure you she is completely fine. She is under a harmless sleeping spell, and as I'm sure you all know, Frances is not someone I want to be dealing with. She is of great power, as you know. So she stays. But I can assure you I have a large story to tell you all. And maybe I can help you paint me in a different light.
So he goes back and sits down on his throne, and he says,
Think back. All of you. Whether or not you've been after me since your birth, or you've just heard about me in the last few days. Think back to all the knowledge you have. Think back to everything you know about me. And tell me, why am I evil? Why are you here to kill me? And I assure you that is why you are here. What have I done to deserve this?
Well, for one, you killed our moms.
Did you know your mother?
I mean, no.
Who was she to you? Other than a voice in your head. They gave you a riddle to find me.
I see your point. But if you hadn't have killed our moms, we would not have grown up the way we did. Do you know the shit that we have been through?
Who's to say I haven't had direct influence into the being that you've become today? I have been around a long time, my son. This is not my first rodeo. There have been other children. There have been other women, other mothers, you could call them. There's no difference in between them and yourself. The difference is I allowed you to live because I see your potential. I allow your brother here to live because I see his potential. I seek the power. Do you know why I seek the power?
No.
It is no secret the ball is returning. I don't want that on my conscience. Having the god of evil roaming this world, unchecked, unchallenged, and nothing to stop him. The seals are a fruitless effort.
Why did you take Frances?
Same reason I would try to stop anyone who has a vendetta to kill me. Her and her petty band of fools have been hunting me down for years.
So you are trying to tell us that you are not behind the seals being broken?
I would be remiss to say if my actions in the past have not led to or resulting in them, but on the quest for power, there are 9 seals. Ball needs all of them broken to return. Sure, his evil spills into this world, but it's the price you pay.
And you say these seals are a fruitless endeavor. What would you have us do to stop Ball?
Ball's returning cannot be stopped. Join me.
I'm sorry. What?
So you just want to fight him?
He's been beaten before. His power. He is the god of death. He ruled the beginning of time with the ancient deities of Cthulhu and Bahamut. You cannot slay an ancient deity. You can lock them away. I, for one, prefer to think that if I can become powerful enough, I can stop them myself, or at least fend myself off. the magics of this plane and the physical plane and the Underdark, the planes yet to be discovered.
Who is to stop you?
I will be unstoppable.
We trade one evil for another?
It is a matter of perspective. But yes, I suppose so.
What is a big power, if not something to challenge it? You seek to free Ball as a way to challenge yourself.
I suppose I won't deny the desire, but I know I am not ready. If I was, I would break the seals myself. Or at least assist this rat in finding them.
And what if we decline?
I can see here that you all have been watching your progress you've been making in my castle. My son here doesn't want his soul because he's too afraid of what he might have to give up for it. There are so many things that you don't realize. And if you do not bind your soul back to your body, you won't leave anyway. So if you decline, feel free to wander this empty, desolate plane for the rest of your existence. That is completely fine with me.
And what of their supposed potential that you see?
That is for me to know and for you to find out. They're my sons. They are destined for much greater things than you.
I have one question, Father. What will you do after Ball is defeated? What are your plans then?
So, Lokar kind of turns away from you guys and walks back up to his throne and sits. And he kind of like crosses his leg, and his purple robe is just long and flowing, like all the way almost down to his feet. And he says,
With Ball gone, there's no limit to my potential, but with Ball being gone for what, another 400 years until the next person starts the same, it's inconsequential. I will live forever. So if I could find a way to do it, if anything, I'm saving the world forever, not just once. I will not die.
Brother, we aren't fools. We know that we cannot defeat him right now.
No, you are correct. Lokar, you mentioned my soul. You understand what I have to give up to retrieve it.
Your most prized possession.
And you understand what that would mean to me to relinquish that. You of all, I think, would understand that most as someone who so deeply desires power.
So Lokar laughs, and he comes and puts his hand on your dragonborn shoulder, and he looks up and says,
My one regret in this situation is that you are not in your body for me to see you eye to eye when I have to tell you this. Your grimoire is your most prized possession. That is the source of your power. Tell me, have you not felt the modicum of disconnection or a hint of maybe that might not be the true source of your power as of late? Answer me honestly, because I already know the answer.
Is there a reason for me to answer?
For you to face the fact that grimoire is nothing but a book of spells that you wish you knew.
and he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a golden pallet, and he opens it up, and it's just full of gears and almost like a very intricate stopwatch, except it's about probably like 8 to 10 inches wide. And he opens it up and he just starts to move his hand across it, and you feel just imbued with energy.
May I see your precious grimoire?
I don't suppose I have much of an option. and I take it out and I hand it to him.
Okay. So you hand him the grimoire, and he opens it up, and he's scrolling through it, and he opens it up, and he says,
These spells, which one do you feel most in tune to?
Probably my Eldritch Blast.
And a wise choice for a sorcerer. Main source of their power. Tell me, I know your bodies and souls are a little mixed up here, but I'll tell you what.
and he comes over to you, Benedict, in Hamilton's body, says,
Why don't you give an Eldritch Blast a shot? Go ahead, shoot that stone pillar over there, that marble one with the tapestry near it.
Okay.
So do you do it?
Yeah.
So you cast an Eldritch Blast and it shoots out, and you hit that. And Bartholonude / Hamilton, you look over and the grimoire is just a book, and you see this thing that he is holding, it begins to spin and turn. And he leans, well, he doesn't lean, he's probably standing like neck and neck with you as you're in Bartholonude's body, and he says,
You see, the reason for your disconnection is because you're not connected at all to any old one. Your powers come from me. I have granted you every spell you have. I have granted you every image you have. I have granted you every bit of magic that flows through your tiny gnome body. So thinking you're going to come in here and stop me with my own power? Good luck. But join me instead, and I can teach you this power. I can gift it all to you. Your pride and arrogance have gotten in the way, and you forgot what it means to be truly powerful. But join me, and I will make sure that all this is imparted to you.
At that, I reach up and I grab him by his throat. And I lift him up off the ground over my head. And I'm just enraged. And I tell him, you mean to tell me that all of my life you have been watching over me as I hunted down your followers and killed them, honing the very magic that you gave me with the ultimate goal of killing you, only for you to tell me this now?
If my followers weren't good enough to stop nothing but children, and that is not meant to offend you, but these people have been following me for decades and you slaughtered them like sheep. Inconsequential to me. If anything, it was just great training for you all. And yes, I have been watching.
So I set him down. I reach out for my book. And I hold it in my hand. And I spit my breath weapon all over it. And as it smolders and burns in my hands, I look at Lokar and say, give me my fucking soul back.
Your soul isn't mine to give you. If it left its previous place, I have not the foresight to see that.
Do you have any inkling into how we can get our souls back and be in our rightful bodies?
Of course. Find your souls.
We have
Engage
found
with
the
them.
souls in the
What have
castle.
they told you? When you enter the astral plane, I didn't unbind your souls from your bodies. Your souls unbind themselves and bind themselves to markers which I have placed in my castle to catch these souls, so I might use them to make myself more powerful. But in your case, as my son, I don't want to siphon your life force. I want you to become more powerful yourself. So find these spirits, engage these spirits, sacrifice yourself with these spirits.
and he looks over at Topher's body with Bartholonude in it and says,
I see you did what it took. Did it not cost you a modicum of pride or relief or something, evoked some type of deep emotion that caused you to give something up to get that back?
I won't disagree with you, but it was an obstacle that you placed before us.
I did no such thing. I placed the markers here for any souls to be caught within.
To what end? Just to give the soul a trial? A challenge?
In your case, yes. I just told you I would use those souls and siphon its energy to make myself more powerful. But not in the case of my sons. Not in the case of where I could have you join me, make me stronger. What benefit does that have to me? The pedestals catch your souls. I did not create whatever it is you experienced as an obstacle. Your soul has to have a reason to come back to your body. That obstacle is presented by you. That obstacle is a mental obstacle that you impose upon yourself. Before your soul will return to you, you have to defeat your own battle. And that is not something I have say in.
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you what my soul told me. And that was to not let my mother's dying wish be in vain.
Your mother's dying wish? Tell me, we spoke of this briefly before, but what did she tell you? What was her dying wish?
To stay away from you.
And why are you here? Wasn't to kill me? Was to stay away? To flee from me? She worried you were going to be more powerful? And where is your mother? Dead?
Yes. Because of you. That I cannot forgive you for. Whether I knew her or not, she is still my mother.
When I was bound to this astral plane, I mentioned briefly before that I was sent here and lived many years here, until I realized that I was not bound to this plane. Whatever spell it was, whatever they cast on me, it did not bind me here. I just needed to find the right spell to get back. But I know my magics. I know the magics that your mothers imparted and dabbled with. And if done correctly, it would have worked. They sacrificed their lives to save you. Do you want to know the reason that I can get back, that I can interact with that plane?
Yeah, I would love to. Yes, please.
Your mother yet lives. And instead of fleeing, like she told you to do in this dream that you so have, she realized that as her son aged and she watched you from a distance, that she would have to get involved in any way that she could to help stop the evil that was coming into this earth. She aimed at the wrong person. And for that, she's tied up behind me. I have walked the physical plane since the moment I realized I was not bound to this desolate place. So I know all your doings. I've watched you grow. You have met me in your younger years. You just don't know it. I've ensured your safety many times. So please, join me. I haven't killed your mother, despite her efforts. She yet lives.
So Lokar turns his back to you all and motions to follow. And you all are just standing there as it's about everything that you guys know has been challenged or shaken. Topher, Bartholonude, while the information wasn't directly pertinent to you guys, it changes just about everything that you guys know about the real Hamilton and the real Benedict. And then with Francis, I mean, that's just a lot of information to ingest. So I kind of want to start with kind of the least impacted by this information. Topher, how are you feeling about all this?
I really don't. I mean, I don't trust that Lokar wouldn't, help defeat Ball and then assume, Ball's role, essentially. I don't trust him with what he's saying at all.
But that's strictly based on what I've heard from Hamilton and Benedict.
Right.
So, because I don't know anything beyond what, from whenever I woke up, so I'd say that I'd probably be keeping an open mind, but still, I trust these two over him.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, the information that he gave you was essentially saying that, sure, I mean, from that perspective, that makes entirely good sense that I would be considered evil. But and then I like to think he laid a pretty good argument out there as to why he's not all evil. Might not be perfect. He didn't necessarily say he wasn't evil, but he said he wasn't.
I also think that there's a chance that he knows more about our role and everything, and obviously the fact that we know Francis, and then he took Francis as a way to get us to come here. Like, it wasn't, he wasn't just doing it. Like, yeah, she's powerful and could, like, defeat him, but I think it was more a double-edged thing. Like, she's powerful, so he wanted to take her, but he also knew that if he did, we would come and find her.
Right.
So there's that too, but, you know, the fact that he's keeping her, like, unconscious, that's just because she's powerful. Other than that, I mean, I'm kind of hesitant to trust that he's going to be truthful with us the entire way. I mean, even if he does help us kill Ball or defeat Ball or keep the seals from breaking, like, you know, but at the same time, he knows we're here, so in my mind, we might as well sit down with him and talk more.
If anything, he's given you guys information you needed.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he hasn't shown any sign of aggression to you guys at all, so. I want to transition over to you, Bartholonude. Particularly during, you know, what was admittedly a weak moment for you with the killing of the dragon, and Francis trying to spin that not necessarily as a positive learning moment, but as a moment of teaching for what it means to be patient, what it means to be diligent in the task, because it's all or nothing with this, with sealing the seals of Ball. And then whenever it happens with the dragon, there was a lot of emotion that you were still feeling even in that moment, and then you didn't have any time. Lokar shows up and takes Francis, and then you guys jump right back into it. So I would imagine that you haven't had the chance to really process everything completely yet, as I'm sure you've been mulling it over the last few days. But still, it's been nonstop. So I'm curious as to how Bartholonude is processing the information he just heard while still overcoming his, I don't want to say his transgressions, but his victory and defeat at the same time.
Bartholonude specifically believes that Lokar is doing nothing but manipulating us currently. I'm not going to express that to my friends because it's not my judgment call. I'm going to support their decision. But Bartholonude believes that the method of his manipulation is just to be disconcerting to us, to throw us off, to make us be lost in thought. And then the moment when indecision becomes decision will be at his advantage.
Okay. I mean, that's good. What about your personal disposition, not necessarily in regards to the situation with Lokar, but how is Bartholonude handling everything else?
Bartholonude specifically was impressed that there wasn't as violent of a reaction when he confessed to get his soul back. Mm-hmm. No one really reacted the way that he thought that they would, because it is blasphemy for a paladin to have those types of thoughts. Like, usually it disqualifies them. So saying those things were very meaningful, not just from his perspective emotionally, but from his entire, for lack of a better word, alignment. He did try to rectify former evils in his life by committing himself to the Paladin Order. And now it seems like that pendulum is swinging back into the other direction.
Okay. And would you feel, I mean, regardless of how that is affecting Bartholonude in his mental state or his personality or the actions that he might take in the future, how do you think that Bartholonude, the fact that they didn't react poorly to this and they accepted it, he feels closer to the group than he ever has before?
It's really difficult for Bartholonude to feel close to the group because he's not even really close with himself. He is almost detached.
I mean, probably even more so after what happened with the seal. And
certainly, because there's a lot of conscious effort and a lot of thought that has went into trying to be delicate about the actions to make things go the way that we planned. And none of those efforts bore any fruit. So it's like he's questioning every effort that he's ever put into doing the right thing.
Man, that's heavy. I really want to paint the picture here. It's like all this is happening in just a split second. I know we're taking the time to talk it out, but you guys have just ingested all this information. Like, you guys have been nonstop for days. This has been never in your guys' life has, I would imagine, you guys have been so challenged. So, Benedict, this is kind of a unique situation for you because up until now, as far as the story has been concerned for Benedict, he's been very much a support character, you know, and I don't mean to get too meta with it, but Benedict has been a very pivotal role, and things that have happened to him have a lot of importance, but they haven't been the frontline battles. And really, at this point, it's mainly Bartholonude. But this is the first thing that you have felt such a strong, deep emotional connection with because the pieces of the puzzle seem to be falling into place for you. And then you just learned that this is your mother, who you thought has been dead your entire life, that has been guiding you. Now, I would imagine that you take that as a grain of salt as, you know, it is Lokar that told you, but at the same time, it really makes a lot of sense. So how's Benedict feeling about all this?
I mean, it is basically exactly what you said. Like, I'm taking it with a grain of salt, but at the same time, why would Lokar lie? I guess, like, he gains nothing really from that. Like, he's just telling us what's up. And right now, Benedict's just trying to balance out anger for the anger he has for Lokar, and now a new problem has arisen where he found out Frances is his mom, and basically he feels abandoned into what he had to deal with growing up. That could have all been prevented, and she was alive the whole time.
Absolutely.
So he's pissed, like, in general, at both.
How much of a factor do you think that, obviously, Frances has made it pretty clear that she has spent many of the previous years trying to prevent what you guys are also trying to prevent Ball from returning. Does that bear any factor on how you feel, or is it just purely, and I'm not trying to discount how you're feeling, but I'm just trying to do you think Benedict takes that into account?
He does, yeah, he definitely takes it into account. Because there's still, like, an overall mission here to avoid the destruction of the fucking world.
Right.
So, I mean, he's just got to basically at this point pick a side.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Hamilton. So there's a lot of talking points that I have and a lot of questions I have that I want to bring forward for Hamilton. And the first being is, I'm not even going to ask the question other than just how are you feeling about this, because you might answer 5-10 of my questions, right? You just got a bomb dropped on you. Your entire purpose was to gain knowledge, to become more powerful. And the one thing that you have been seeking this power to destroy turns out to be the one thing that is giving you the power that you were trying to seek. And that's got to be devastating.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that Hamilton's trying to wrap his mind around, at least immediately right off the bat, is what are the potential consequences of, you know, did he even actually have a pact with Cthulhu? You know, obviously the power didn't necessarily come from him, But at this point, does he actually owe anything to Cthulhu? Is he still bound by this pact that he thought that he was under? Has he been holding up his end of the deal? If there is one still in place, and if there isn't, you know, what does that mean for him?
And that was along those same lines. One of my other questions is that knowing that your power solely flows through your father, or so he says anyway, does that change how you feel about the power that you do have? The time you spent acclimating and learning and possessing? Like, how does that make you feel about the things that you've done?
I definitely think there's some conflict there because, you know, he's been driven to hunt down and kill his father because in his mind, Lokar has always been this benevolent adversary.
Malevolent.
You know, and he, yes, that one. But there's a lot of conflict because, you know, his dad was always this big bad, and he was seeking him out to kill him because he had made all of these justifications as to why it was worth it. Because, you know, obviously this has not been an easy road getting to this point. There's been a lot of sacrifices along the way. And he had thought that he was making a deal with this, you know, evil, dark old god to gain these powers with the idea that the payoff is that he can eliminate his father. So I think there's a lot of introspective thoughts happening where, you know, in order to eventually challenge his father, is he becoming the very evil that he's been seeking out to destroy this entire time?
Yeah, that's heavy too. I mean, other than the fact that, you know, I would imagine that your thirst for that power, other than it being called into question, it didn't go anywhere. It's just potentially been diverted for the moment, because ultimately, regardless of what your father says, who you ultimately probably still don't trust, and what he says about Ball and what he says about Francis and what he says about you all and your power, it doesn't change the fact that Hamilton at his complete core, while it may be shaken, still wants to be the most powerful that he can be, still wants to see his father dead. But now at what cost is that? Because all of his desires now have conflict and overlap with one another.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's troubling him so much is that he sees now this bigger picture that, you know, if Ball is not stopped one way or another, then it doesn't really matter. And at this point, you know, if what Lokar is saying is true and Hamilton is deriving his power from his father, then, you know, he can't really challenge his father until everything is taken care of. Like until Ball is stopped or banished or killed or whatever, he can't really move on and get this closure in his life that he's been seeking this whole time. Because in doing so, you know, what if that is the change in the shift in the balance that loses the overall battle, you know, the battle for survival. You know, maybe he has this small victory or huge victory for him, but overall it becomes a small victory because he kills his father, loses his powers, and then Ball takes over the world and brings about, you know, the end of everything. Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, being that your father is the source of your power, whether or not, if you could get that power back, if whatever would be next for you if your father died, if Ball were to return, would that mean that you would be helpless or useless, I should say? You'd be both helpless and useless. Right.
But if your father wasn't lying to you, he could potentially help save this world, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And he would, you know, He has his own agenda to be the most powerful, to be immortal. I mean, he had you to sacrifice your lives to be immortal.
And I think the other thing that, Hamilton is kind of struggling with at this point is the very core of being a warlock is your pact to a god. So the fact that this, that pact was just fabricated and doesn't even exist, is he even actually a warlock, or is he just a funnel for his father's power, like a proxy of power? Or, maybe it's been within him the whole time and he just hasn't yet figured out how to tap into it, and he's more like a sorcerer or a wizard or something, but not necessarily a warlock because he has no bond to a god. He has no ties to a pact that he's made with anything. So, it just down to his very identity of who he is all totally in question.
Yeah, and I really like that you say that, because like one of the staples of your character is the fact that as a charlatan, I know it's kind of interesting, the fact that your character assumes false identities. Your character is a master of deception, is a master of trickery, and then everything that you've based your character and your morals on,
all just a charade.
Everything is just charade, which is just the sickest sense of irony to you. And I imagine, like, at this moment, you probably just feel sick to your stomach, like your life has been a giant joke. So yeah, I mean, anything else that you wanted to add about how Hamilton's feeling? I mean, I know that was a lot, but your brother just found out that his real mother is still alive. I mean, how do you feel about the Francis situation?
I mean, honestly, I think for Hamilton, Hamilton is at his core a very selfish and self-interested person, and since being a part of this party, he's changed a lot and become more invested in his colleagues. But I think that at this moment, the news that he has received is just so shatteringly personal to him in every conceivable way that he's not even processing anything that has happened to anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely fair. So Lokar has gone past the throne that he was sitting on to a door that was off to the left, big door, and he doesn't even touch the door. He just kind of extends his hands out and just kind of pushes it. So the door swings open and there is a table, and the table has about 19 to 20 chairs on either side of it. It is a very long table.
This is like some Harry Potter shit.
Yep. Except it's all one table with just three bases, one base under each end. It's very ornate, kind of comes down in like a bulb-like pattern down on the legs, and it kind of comes down and branches into four legs that actually support the table, one in the middle and one on each side, and these chairs completely surround it. And Lokar comes in and he extends his hand out, and the chairs all push out. And when he does, he extends 6 chairs, 2 on one side, 3 on the other, and the chair at the end. And he sits down at the chair at the end, and he invites you all to come sit with him.
I'll walk over and stand behind the chair.
I'm going to go sit down.
Okay.
Reluctantly.
So, Benedict, you walk around the other side of the table reluctantly and slowly, and you just kind of pull the chair out. Do you sit next to him, or do you sit
I sit next to him.
Okay, you sit like right at the table next. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you pull out the chair closest to him and you sit down slowly, reluctantly, as you look across the table, and Bartholonude is standing behind the chair directly across from you. Topher, Hamilton.
I guess I do.
Okay. So you pull out the chair that's next to the chair Bartholonude is standing behind and sit, and then what do you do, Hamilton/Nude?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I go sit down. Yeah.
Okay. So as you guys look around, you notice that he extended 6 chairs, but there's only 5 of you. And as you're standing there, Lokar puts his fingers up and kind of waves 2 of his fingers as he's summoning someone, and there is a a mass group of small goblin-like creatures that walk out, and they have various platters of food and like a giant pig with an apple in its mouth, and you have sides of gravy and breads and fruits and various vegetables. Just a very neatly nice prepared meal. And they create the spread and lay the dishes, and he waves his hand, and all the food just starts to slowly disperse out onto all the plates, and he invites you guys to eat as he takes a bite of the pork on his plate.
Bartholonude just walks over to the window and kind of looks out the window and just kind of stops and stares.
So when you look out the window, you see the mountain range in the distance. You see the purple haze clouds and the pit of just darkness that surrounds this castle, which is just sitting pretty solitarily on this mound of rock that extends out of the darkness. And you see off in the distance where you guys fell, on this plateau that's sitting there. And you see in the distance the moon beginning to fall upside down. And then you see the spectral dog still sitting on the plateau, and it's howling at the moon as it falls. So Lokar, as he's eating, looks around the table and says,
Don't be shy.
and he looks at you, Benedict, and says,
Speak to me, son. Tell me what you're thinking.
I say nothing.
you don't say anything? Are you even eating? Like,
No, I'm not eating.
This is probably that's what I kind of pictured.
I'm just like, I can't even like listen to anything else going around me. I'm just trying to think of like what I can do to remedy this situation, like how I can get my body back, what I'm gonna do after. Like, am I gonna team with this douchebag? Like, am I?
Right.
Yeah, I don't even say anything.
Bartholonude in Topher's body pulls out his bedroll and lays it down under the window and lies down.
I want to ask Lokar a question.
Okay.
Lokar, do you know anything regarding magic that could block memories?
So Lokar looks at you and says,
Memory loss and like amnesia, or are you just simply forgetting things?
Amnesia.
Physically harmed? Many of these things are just physical ailments. It could just be damaged under your body.
I don't know. I awoke one day without any memory.
His mind is not damaged
And how did you come to this conclusion?
because I can remember. If he was unable to remember in this body alone, then I should not have memory of my past with his brain.
An astute observation. There are many types of magics that can hinder your memory, but most of those project alternate memories or falsify what you know. You say you have nothing at all?
Nothing.
These are dark magics. Many of these magics are not things that can happen to you. Many of these magics are self-imposed or push the limits of power that does not exist in this world today. Why are you asking? Perhaps if you don't remember, you might not want to. It may be for the greater good.
I've had flashbacks of a church. My family. But that's it. I would like to remember my family. Remember my childhood.
I'm afraid I cannot help you there. These types of magics are not what you would call my specialty.
Well, I was just curious if you knew anything. But that was more information than I had about it. Knowing that it's dark. Some kind of evil magic.
so he looks at you, Hamilton. It says,
My son, I know this is a lot to process for you. But you must know I only had your best interests at heart. connecting to a god as powerful as Cthulhu is nothing but dangerous. Nothing good could come of that. I knew it would take someone of many years of practicing the ways of the warlock to establish that type of connection. But I didn't want you to be let down. I want to see my son be the most powerful warlock that has ever walked this earth. And while I can't say that I am more powerful than the ancient god Cthulhu sleeps. My power does not. My power rises every day. And every second I gain my power, your power increases.
It does seem convenient to me that if you were to die, that I would lose my power.
When the news hit of Baal returning to this earth, Baal's followers are immeasurable in number. Whether it be tomorrow, whether it be the next day, or whether it be 10 years from now, Baal will return. And Francis...
He points behind him, back out the room, and you guys can see her hanging solemnly, unconscious by these chains on the wall.
Valiant effort, of course, but there'd be no consequence. I don't plan on going anywhere. So if you join me, there will be no need for you to worry. You'll be more powerful than you ever were, and ever could be, by connecting to me versus Cthulhu. So don't worry.
And he starts to eat again.
Bartholonude stands up and rolls up his bedroll very solemnly. And he walks over to the corner of the table nearest to Lokar. And as Lokar finishes chewing and he swallows, it gives him the opportunity to speak, and that's when Bartholonude says, "What is your plan with Francis?"
As you all know, Francis has been instrumental in collecting the information that it takes to seal the god of death away. As I said before, this is a valiant effort, but it's fruitless. And while I admit in my ways I have not been the kindest to my followers or the people of Faerun, my methods are effective. Francis sees me as an obstacle, and someone that works for Baal and with Baal, but I assure you I do not. My interests are entirely selfish. With her in the picture, she's a hindrance to me. She has power that I could potentially tap into. Also, the power to keep me sealed in this domain forever. I much prefer to come and go as I please. For although you both survived, the spell could still be completed if I desire. With my control of Hamilton's abilities, and no offense to you, my son, I don't necessarily see you all as a challenge. But I keep you alive, you see, because with your death and Francis's death, I could easily achieve the path to immortality. But what good is immortality if Baal will take the earth? And there will be nothing left to live for. So I let you walk this earth. I let Francis live. But I cannot have her standing in my way.
Why does Francis want to stand in your way?
Francis thinks I work for Baal.
And you have not told her otherwise?
Let's just say there are interests that tie very closely to the seals. But that is not of your concern. I am more careful than I seem. Tell me, sons.
Then he looks back and forth at the both of you, real Hamilton and real Benedict.
Your souls, were you able to find them?
We were.
And?
And what?
Do you have them? I told you I can't help you get them.
Well, we've been up here. Enough of the pleasantries. Father, I want my body back.
I've told you I can't help you there. That is not a doing of my magic. That is a doing of you being in this plane.
I'm not asking for your help. I'm telling you, we are leaving, and we are going to get our souls back.
Okay. Lokar doesn't stop you. He kind of pushes his chair back out and stands up and says,
I wish you all the best.
I'm sure. Fucking asshole. And he slams his chair and then walks out the door and does not look to see if anyone's following.
Just keeps walking out the way he came.
Bartholonude follows.
I still have some questions.
Yeah, I was going to stay here. I'm not going to leave Hamilton.
As I walk out the door back into like the main area where we first met him, I cast Spectral Weapon.
Okay.
And I create an axe, a very heavy-headed axe. And as I do that, I turn around back and look back through the doorway that I just came, and I see that Benedict's body and my body is still in the room. As if to wait for them, I stand in the doorway, and my spectral weapon is cast up into the side to where no one inside that room can see the spectral weapon. Does it make an audible sound?
I don't think so, no. I think it just kind of appears.
Okay. Well, it's up there now, and I'm just kind of watching them from a distance. Am I at the distance where I could hear a conversation if they would have it?
I will say this. Make a perception check now, and depending on how good that is, I would say it would determine the clarity of what you'll hear.
While he's making his perception check, I want to... am I within 30 feet of Hamilnude?
18.
He's still at the table.
I know.
Probably not. No, you're not.
Okay.
Because you had said you walked out and were heading towards the exit. Now,
yeah,
if you would like to just still be in that range, that's fine. We can...
Yeah, I'll lean up against the door. I'm obviously going to wait for the rest of the party, but I have nothing else to say to Lokar at this moment.
Okay.
But I want to be within 30 feet so I can engage with the telepathy between me and Hamilnude.
Okay.
So I can hear their conversation.
Okay. So, Topher Dick and Hamilnude.
It's Toe Dick.
Topher Dick and Hamilnude are still in the room with Lokar, and his attention this entire time has been focused on you, Hamilton, like the real Hamilton, and speaking generally to you, and seems to be caring about you the most. So, Hamilton, in Bartholonude's body, you said you had more questions.
So, yeah. So, if I derive my powers from you and not Cthulhu, I'm not even a warlock at all, am I?
As Lokar goes to say this, like right as his mouth opens, I literally take this opportunity with the spectral weapon and I make it move very quickly and hit the chain that is holding up Francis. And right as I believe it's going to impact the chain, I yell, "Hamilton! I would like my body back soon!" And I scream that to try to cover up the sound of the axe hitting the chain.
Okay. Give me a performance check.
10.
All right, so you yelled as this axe hits this chain, and the chain definitively snaps. And Francis's arm that it was holding out, you said you went for the one up top, right? Mm-hmm. And her arm just kind of falls as the other half of the chain is still hanging on to her arm, and her arm is kind of swinging. And Lokar turns and looks and sees Francis's arm hanging there. So he kind of deduces what had happened. And he's not upset. He kind of stands up and he walks away from Hamilton, who just asked him this question, and walks into the room, and he looks at you and he says,
"If you would like your friend back, I can assure you that give it time and I will return Francis to you unscathed. But for now, she will stay as she is."
And he points at the chain, and twists his fingers and the chain reconnects and then retightens.
Did he walk all the way into the room? Did he have to go through the door?
I would say yes. I would say he walked in to be next to you whenever he said that. So as he turns around and starts walking back into the other room,
My son, for all intents and purposes, you're a warlock. The spells that you maintain and the powers that you nurture, they are your own. The power you have just flows through me. Innately, being a warlock relies on your connection to a god or some very powerful being, and I ask, why would the fact that I am the one supplying you with this power be any different than that of Cthulhu or anyone else? My power is growing and I liken, maybe not that of as a god, but I am very powerful.
Your power is not what gives me pause. The issue is, I do not know the grounds of which this pact was made. The deal that I struck, or thought to have struck with Cthulhu, was known to me. The deal that I am certain I have struck with you is not.
There was no deal with Cthulhu. The images and things that you saw were of mine. You think you have talked to Cthulhu. You think you have spoken to Cthulhu, but those were me putting images of what I wanted you to see in your head. And I apologize for the deceit, but at the time, you have to understand that I have been hunted, I have been tricked, I have been deceived, and it will not happen again. So while I apologize for deceiving you, you also have put all but a bounty on my head. And while I don't believe you and my other son to be a threat, that does not mean you would not be a formidable foe. So I urge you to stop seeing me as your enemy and accept what has happened. For the bond you had created with Cthulhu, while it not actually being there, does not mean it should destroy the link that you thought you had. Just consider me to be of godlike status. And I'm not asking you to worship me. I'm asking you to use that connection to funnel your energy. Because my son, as powerful as I am, you could be even more powerful.
So I do kind of want to have an internal dialogue.
okay.
This is what Hamilton would be thinking is, so basically this whole time, he didn't actually have a pact with Cthulhu or, the old god, the old one, whatever. He's had this pact with Lokar this whole time. And the reasoning for that was because, at least according to what Lokar says, he was trying to protect me from basically getting in over my head with something that I wasn't prepared for, that I wasn't trained for, that I wasn't strong enough to be able to handle. So my immediate thought now is, with the guidance, with the power that I've gained over all of these years using Lokar's magic, maybe now I could make a pact with Cthulhu and become even more powerful.
Lokar finishes his plate and says, loud enough to where you can also hear it, real Benedict.
I understand the hatred, and I didn't anticipate you coming here and believing me. Why? You have no reason to. But my sons, it is good to see you. But what I wouldn't give to see you back in your own bodies. Now may be the time to go get your souls back.
So whenever he says this, he stands up and he has his wine in hand and he goes out of the room and goes over near his throne. And then behind his throne on the other side, there's also a door. He opens the door and says,
Here is a staircase. And the staircase will take you down to the first floor, in the same room with the talking door. Please, feel free to use this to navigate my keep. I will be here if you have questions.
Benedict, still in Hamilton's body, turns around and looks at the physical form of Topher, housing the consciousness of Bartholonude. Discomforted, and entirely against their expectations of Lokar, the two move forward towards the newly revealed staircase. The real Hamilton sat in his chair, still, with his mind full of questions. Knowing the importance of his soul, and against his greater judgment, he raised to his dragonborn feet and accompanied Benedict's body to the staircase. As the rest of the party slipped out of sight around the first curve of the spiral staircase, Hamilton, still in Bartholonude's body, walked through the staircase door. And as he rounded the staircase and the door began to close, he saw Lokar standing in the doorway across the hall, watching him, smiling, sending a chill down Hamilton's dragon spine.